Hello, beautiful souls. Today's episode is so good. And before we jump in, I have some exciting news to share. If you've ever wondered where you're blocking money, this is for you. I've created a free quiz to diagnose your money wounds so you can heal them and unblock yourself to receive more money. Just go to moneywoundsquiz.com and answer 6 quick questions to get your insanely accurate and potent result. And if you're loving my vibe and want to work one-on-one to call in more feminine energy wealth, I would love to hear from you. You can shoot me a DM on social media or go to emilywilcox.com to learn more. All right, Alex, I am so thrilled to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. I look forward to this day and this time since you extended the invite. And so I'm super pumped about today's podcast episode.
Likewise. Yeah. And, Alex, I consider you a friend and a mentor. You've been a coach to me, and I want to just formally introduce you so that our audience knows who they have the honor of listening to today. So Alex is a coffee-loving, family-focused marketing and business growth strategist. Alex is also the founder of Fampreneur, a movement that equips and empowers family-focused entrepreneurs to grow wildly successful businesses while having a thriving family life. After building 2 successful mortgage companies, losing it all, and rebuilding a consulting business of his dreams, Alex focuses on helping experts and thought leaders on how to build profitable and purposeful online businesses they love. His results-driven approach combines mindset, marketing, and monetization strategies to amplify his clients' results quickly with more ease so that they can win back their time and do what drives them. And I know that everyone after hearing that is going to want to connect with you, Alex. So they can find you at alexnavas.com. And Alex is also on Instagram at alexnavaspro. And Navas is Navas. So Alex.
Yes.
What a wonderful introduction. I'm so thrilled that you're here.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the beautiful introduction. And yeah, I'm excited. First of all, I love that you put this podcast together and the things that you and I talked about that you want this podcast to become out in the marketplace, out for, powerful people. It's just a breath of fresh air because it's a much needed message, and you're the much needed person to deliver that message.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really excited about talking more about money with radical transparency and bringing our money wounds and limiting beliefs around money out into the open, to the surface, so that we can talk about them and move through them, heal them, and all call more money into our lives. Yes. And I truly believe that will change the planet for the positive.
100%. I'm with you there.
So knowing your past and that you've had different businesses, you've also worked for a company as a coach and a mentor, and you're currently rebirthing Fampreneur into kind of this 2.0 version of your own company. I would imagine that you've had so many experiences with your own limiting beliefs around money throughout this journey.
So many, so many. And, some people believe that once you conquer your limiting beliefs, you're done, you're cool, coast is clear for the rest of your life. And then you encounter new experiences, new opportunities that you don't have any experience with. And so some of that stuff starts creeping back in. It just looks a little bit different than it did before. And so, a lot of experience there, a lot of new things. I mean, recently I feel like I'm pretty mindful about how I view money, my relationship with money, and I feel like I'm on top of the game. And yet still circumstances and life experiences come and you're like, oh, wait, I wasn't quite equipped for this one. I didn't know this will even be a thing. Yeah. And then, just navigating that journey. And that's the case for everybody on at every stage of their growth and, their money path,
Yeah. And you just told me that you've generated 6 figures in 6 days. So First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
And secondly, I kind of want to go back in time. Did kid Alex ever imagine, did you know you were destined for big things and that you were going to call a lot of money in? Or does the idea of 6 figures in 6 days just seem like an absolute impossibility?
Little of both, I would say.
Yeah.
And so what I would say is like, I never was one to settle. I always dreamed big. But when I think about that, like it wasn't really well defined. So it was very difficult to approach these big dreams if you don't even know what they are. And so early on, I wanted to be an actor, and I wanted to do something that I would be able to, be funny and just be kind of a performer, even though I was nervous at first. And just I had a lot of charisma as a kid. And I'm just like, hey, I just want to be the center of the room and just make people smile. So whatever I do is going to do that. And so, as an actor, as a performer, really, I was always into movies. So I would see what the actors would make me feel. And I was like, wow, you're like, I can see the emotional elements of a movie that I'm watching or a show. And I'm like, oh, wow, you just shifted my energy. You just shifted my focus, my attention, the way I see things. Wow, I want to do that for people. So this is little boy Alex. I have no clue what I can even do with these things that I had naturally in me. I'm going to do something with it. And so now I'm a teenager and I'm jumping from one thing to another, and I get sick of jobs. I remember one of my jobs as a high school kid. It was like a fast food restaurant. I got there, I burned my hand, and I'm like, okay, I'm good, I'm done. So many people are like holding on to this job and security. I'm like, I'll go find something else. It's all good. Like there's plenty of opportunity out there. But over the years since then, it's expanded. What I saw as opportunities back then, there was something in me that desired more. I didn't always know what that was or how to get it, but it was something that drove me. And, part of that was, really is escaping anybody putting lids on me, because I had experienced that, in my professional life as a kid and now a teenager. And now I'm a professional. And now, there was always people that put lids on me. And I was like, I don't work well with that. Who is anybody to tell me what I can do or what I can't do? And that's part of the entrepreneur spirit. But for me, that's a big one. And so I remember there was two distinct situations that happened. One of them, I was about 19. The other one, I was about 20, 21. And I remember as a 19-year-old, I dropped out of college. And it just wasn't for me. It was just too slow paced for me. I wanted to do something immediately. And so I got this job, and I was, making decent money. I would say for a 19-year-old, I think I was making like 40 grand or something like that. And I was an assistant to other individuals. So I was kind of like support, part of the support team. But the interesting thing was that I would be training the people I'm there to assist. I would be showing them how to do their job, but I was an assistant. And then I'd see other people being brought in that I would be the assistant to. And I'm like, when is my chance? I'm literally training these people, and yet I'm not given the opportunity. Oh, there's a lid here. And eventually I got to the point where I knew I was talking to somebody at that company, and I was talking to the director of that division that I was in. And we were talking about stuff. Like, so I wanted a new car, and it was at that time, it wasn't, a Lamborghini or anything. It was like literally it was a brand new of the year. I think it was a 99 Volkswagen Jetta. It just came out. It looked so cool to me. I wanted the leather seats and the sunroof. I'm 19, 20 years old at the time. And, the director said, well, why don't you just go buy this thing? As if that was too much for me to desire. When I heard that, I was like, okay, my job, I'm done here. And I left. And like, I might have given my 2 weeks notice. I'm like, there's something more. She sees me this way, so I'm not going to be able to move beyond this. Then I went to another place, and they paid me more, and I was promoted there. And then on one occasion, probably about a year later, they offered me the management position. I'm like, well, cool. They're recognizing me. There's no lids here. Excellent. And it was because the current manager at the time, she had left because she was expecting a child. And once she had her son, she decided not to come back. So they said, okay, Alex, you're doing amazing here. We want to give you that position. Well, a week later, she decided that she is coming back after all. And now this promotion that I would just received is stripped from me. And, great for her. But I was thinking of like, okay, well, where else am I going to go? Like, this is a smaller organization. And my next move here was open to me and then taken away from me. I'm not going to be in this position anymore. So I knew that I had big goals, big aspirations, and I didn't want to settle. And so to me, that was the big driver. And I look back and I was like, there was some of that already there as I was a kid. Some of that resistance, some feeling capped and not desiring that and not wanting that in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there was that rebelliousness.
Yeah.
And I'm curious because part of me wonders, sometimes that rebelliousness is kind of a wounded masculine energy, meaning I'm going to prove it. So going out and taking action, not because it's necessarily for our own highest good, but because we want to prove to someone else that we can do it and that the limitation that they put on us wasn't true. Did you feel like there was any of that energy, or was it more like, no, I'm just a free spirit and I just need a lot of expansiveness in order to be my highest self?
I would say for me, it was both. So there was that element like, oh, you think I can do certain things and that I can't do certain things? Okay, you watch. So there was certainly that.
Yeah.
And on the other side, I was like, well, I'm meant for more. I could be doing more. So that second one that they took the management position, I ended up getting a job. Now I'm in, early 20s, late teens, early 20s. So I go get a job with Allstate and they're paying me even better. And I'm there in front of the computer, data entry. And I'm like, this mind can do so much more. This heart can do so much more. This human here can do so much more. So it wasn't just a pain. It was like there was a call to fulfillment that I hadn't been able to express at that time. So it's, for me, maybe it's different for everybody. It is different for everybody, but for me, there was an element of both the masculine and the feminine that was calling me to something greater. To prove to others, but also to find the fulfillment in me, because I knew that there was something more for me.
Yeah. And what I often observe is that in certain periods of our lives, we will weaponize money. So the amount that we're earning or the lack of money in our lives, we make it mean something about ourselves. And often we make it mean something that is consistent with a wound we already have. So if we already feel abandoned, we will see the evidence of money leaving us as further evidence of our abandonment, as an example. Mm-hmm. Can you think of any times when you've weaponized money against yourself?
Probably several times. One was that at first, early on, as I was still maturing, money became the drive for me. Like it is about the money. I'm playing a game of money here. And it was at the expense of what was true for me. So I was playing the game of money, more money and more money and more money. And so 21 years old, 22, we started our first business. My wife and I, we got married in 2000. Our first business was 2001. So, and then my son was born in 2001. So I've raised my business and my son exactly the same time. And at first I was just pursuing money. Okay, more. And then there's more. And then there's more. And then every level of more that we'd achieve, we'd get the stuff and our lifestyle would increase. But I still had this unquenchable thirst for more. But really it was at an expense. Because I wasn't even happy. I wasn't even joyful. It was just more for more's sake. And I realized okay, I thought when I'd get here, I feel like finally I made it. Finally, I can enjoy life. And I get there and it's like, this isn't really as meaningful as I thought. I guess maybe the goal should be higher and let me go after that. Yeah. And so I created an identity out of that. And where it really hindered me was, fast forward to 2008, real estate market changed. We lose everything. We were making really good money to having nothing. Like I remember buying a gallon of milk on a credit card. And it was
how much money, Alex, were you making at that time before you?
Yeah, it was in my 20s. And for me, this was, now I look at it, I'm like, really, that's it. But back then, we were doing $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month in our mortgage company. And to me, I was like, I don't know anybody that's making this kind of money, especially in their 20s. Yeah. Like people are looking at us and we have the cars and the house and all that stuff. And I'm a college dropout, like all these different things, that I told myself. So it was a lot for us at the time. And for some, it still is a lot, based on their current beliefs around money. So it was a lot for us. So then when we lost that, I realized that I went into a deep depression, and it was really difficult, and it hampered our marriage. And I was like, wow, I built an identity around being able to make money. And so I lose the ability to make money because of circumstances or whatever it is, and choices that I made as well. And so now I lose my identity. And so like, I'm finding myself, who am I? I don't know, because I placed my identity on the things that I accomplished, not who I was intrinsically.
Yes. And I can so relate to that, because I've done that too. And it is such a sneaky thing when it happens. It's a very easy attachment to attach our self-worth to our accomplishments, or to the money that we make, or to the work that we do.
Yeah.
It's a little more difficult to uncouple that. So talk to me about that. How did you recreate your identity or your self-worth independent of what you did for a living?
A couple of things I would say. For me, my faith has always been a really important, element of my life. And so that was a big one, is just, drawing close to God. And there was a lot of stuff that I knew about God, but just because I had the knowledge of God, and, and what this word says, I had knowledge of it, but I didn't quite internalize it. There's a passage that says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. But I always knew it to be, as a man thinks as a man thinks, so is he. And then I started like really meditating on that back in those days. I really didn't have much anymore, and I'm like discovering myself. And there was a distinction between what I thought it said to actually what it says. And once I got clear on it, it was really very liberating for me. So I thought it was, as a man thinks in his head, so is he, but it doesn't say that. It says, as a man thinks in his heart. And I'm like, wait, where do we think? Like when we consider thinking, it doesn't really come from here. But as I started pondering on that, I was like, got it. So it's not the intellect of the thing is not where the secret is. It's the taking this intellect and experiencing, allowing it to help you become who you are. So it's got to be at the heart level, at the spirit level, at the soul level, because we all know what we can do to make money, to make millions or tens of millions. Like we have knowledge of that, but yet because we haven't become the person that does it, there's a gap. Yeah. And so for me, when I started thinking about that, I'm like, I've missed it. Like there's some truths that I know here. There's some things that I'm aware of that helps me with my identity, but I have not internalized it. And the minute that I do, now it's not performance. My identity is not performance based. Now it's not because of what I do or don't do, what I have or don't have. It's not contingent on external things, but I myself am sufficient. I myself am enough. And that helped me in the healing process. So that was a big one, I would say. And then two others is, the second one is looking at what happened after we lost everything. Most people see it as loss, and at the time I saw it as loss, but then there was opportunities for me to turn that loss into gain. And so, we were making good money for us at the time, and now we're making nothing. So I go and get a job at a nonprofit, and it turns out that the opportunity that opened up for me was to be a foreclosure counselor, having just gone through foreclosure. I'm the mortgage guy, the money guy. I get people money. I just lost it. And now the opportunity comes up for me to be a foreclosure counselor. And now I'm counseling families who are also losing their houses, who are all this, and I'm helping them kind of go through this. And one of the most healing things that I would tell them is, where were you living before you had this house? Oh, we were renting and we were doing fine. Okay. Were you homeless? No. Were you still together as a family, or did the house bring your family together? No, we had all that stuff. Oh, great. So you're just losing a building. You're not losing your home. And when they heard it that way, they're like, wow, we'll survive this. They had hope. And I only had that context because I had gone through that experience myself. Yeah. And so it was taking this loss and turn it into a lesson. And I was like, wow, even in the greatest obstacles that I've ever faced, I get to experience something that I can use to pour into somebody else. I get to bring hope for somebody else. I get to bring, a clear vision for somebody else. I get to bring healing through my experience. So it was my cost for your gain. Wow, that's amazing. And so then I started looking at everything that I had experienced and thought I lost and all this stuff. And then even when I speak, sometimes I share about the moment that I lost everything that I thought was everything.
Yeah.
I thought the car was everything, the traveling whenever was everything, the house, all that stuff was everything. And I realized, wait, my faith is intact. That had gone nowhere. My family's intact. My health is intact. Like the things that really matter and are significant have gone nowhere. They've been intact this entire time. And then I started, as I, evaluated this, I was like, well, it wasn't really a loss then.
Yeah.
And then that helped me build my identity because it wasn't based on stuff or circumstance.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting that rebuild of identity and that so much of that was tied into your faith. I see it going two ways sometimes, where either there's this remembrance, right? I'm a child of God, therefore the kingdom of God is my birthright. Or there's certainly other Bible verses or other messages that people get through religion and spirituality that make them feel ashamed or scared to claim the money that they want, right? Mm-hmm. Because there's also a lot of messaging around sort of the piousness and the righteousness of the poor.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like you were able to really reconnect with your infinite worth through your spiritual and your faith, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it led you to becoming a foreclosure specialist or coach. Was that kind of the beginning of Alex Navas as a coach?
Formally, yes.
Okay.
But if I look back, I think I've really operated with that coaching heart, that coaching spirit most of my life.
Yeah.
And I remember in high school, I remember in grade school, like people would come to me for advice or, that not always even advice. It's just like somebody to listen.
Mm.
And I can talk to you. I can talk this out. Sometimes I'm like, I don't even have advice for you, but I will lend a listening ear. And then they walk away. Oh my God, thank you so much. What a great conversation. I'm like, I didn't really even say anything. I just asked you a couple questions.
Yeah.
So I think I had that, but that was the first element where, prior to that, I was service-based type businesses, mortgages, people would come to me. And to some degree, I would counsel and consult with them on mortgage options and things like that. So there was some elements to it. But now people are coming to me specifically for advice, for direction, for coaching. There was no service attached to it. I'm not trying to sell a mortgage or a home or whatever the case is. And so that was certainly a part of me becoming who I am today and really operating as a coach and consultant on a professional level, not just I do it because I do it. And that's my natural gifting.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, people actually pursue opportunities to get coached. Wow, that's a cool thing. Yeah. I've been coaching for free this whole time.
Right. What? There's a whole industry here, and wow, people actually really make incredible livings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. And speaking of the coaching space, often it's very common that people who are coaches are also investing in coaches. And many people have at least one story, if not a half a dozen, where they made an investment into themselves that felt so scary at the time, but also helped them upgrade their identity. And I'm curious if you have a story around that as well.
So many. Just pick the phase of my journey and I got stories for days. My first big investment, honestly, in coaching wasn't actually a coach. It was my wife. Getting married. Like literally biggest
Yes.
investment of my life. Everything that I have is yours. So like I have no other big investment as big as my marriage. And what I actually posted about this not too long ago, is like she was one of the people that really helped shape who I am today. And so, I say that jokingly, with the investment, but really, that is an investment. Like I gave up. I typically say that in the context of how it reflects on her. Like she gave up good to take a chance that it'll be better with me, But I think about that too. I was like, I could have done anything, but I gave up that in the hopes that I'd get something better with my wife. And it became exceedingly better, right? So from that side, my marriage was a big one, but professionally speaking, the first investment that I made was it was a coach in the mortgage industry. Again, I'm younger 20s here, and I didn't come from money. Like we grew up, my parents were two immigrants. They didn't have much. They came in their teenage years with literally, a couple of dollars. And so we didn't have a whole lot of money. So when I'm in business now, and we started making okay money before we were making better money. But I remember the first professional investment that I made outside of like books and courses. Like I had spent, money on books or, $100, $200 on courses, things like that. But I remember a $4,000 investment that I made. And it was pretty scary to me. But, again, going back to one of my values is growth. I did not want anyone to cap me. Shame on me if I'm capping me. So I was like, no, I'm going to invest. And it was scary. And I was a bit nervous. And I had a whole lot of doubts that came with it. But I was like, I don't ever want to cap me either. So if this can help me be better, cool. But there was a whole lot of doubts and, and beliefs around that investment. It was kind of scary, but it was totally worth it.
Yeah. And now, like today, what level of investment do you think it would take to make you feel that same way that $4,000 investment felt?
That's a good question. Because now, like 4,000 was a big deal then, and I'm like, oh, I'll just buy that. I'll buy a course just randomly because I want to learn something. So now it's not a big deal,
right?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, probably six figures. I would say. Yeah, I would say six figures. Yeah, and there's some like a little nervousness around that, but not really because I know what I would do with something. If I think back to that $4,000, like what did I get out of $4,000? Well, directly, probably, several hundreds of thousands of dollars in actual business growth, like actual revenue. But here's the thing, and the way that I'm impact driven. So I don't only look at the immediate, but like the ripple effects of the choices we make. So that $4,000 may have made me, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but what it's made me directly and indirectly through then me taking that and who I've become as a result of taking a chance on me as I pour into others is probably several millions and tens of millions of dollars as an extension of what I give to others, the clients that I serve. And so what they were able to get out that little investment, that I made in 2003 that really kicked off a chain of events of me buying into me as my highest and best investment is going to be me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say scary. I haven't done 100K. I've done, up into 50, 60 level, but I haven't done 100K just yet.
Okay.
And when I'm ready to, I'm like, all right, cool. Let's do it. New challenge, new opportunities. Let's go.
And I'm always so curious about those kinds of questions because it is really funny how our perception of money and what's big and what's scary changes so much over time. And it's like, I just wonder, like, I'm can't wait to meet me in 10 years, like what's she going to think is big and small? Yeah.
Well, you in 2 years is going to be so much. You're going to laugh at today, this conversation now, because you're like, really? That was cute of me.
Exactly. So I want to fast forward to present day to this version of Alex Navas that just created $100,000 in, or six figures. Maybe it was even more than $100,000.
It'll end up being more than
6 days.
Yeah.
So you're really rebirthing your fampreneur. I don't even want to say program because I think that labels that limits it, but your
It's a
fampreneur
movement.
vision and business
Yeah.
and mission. What are some money goals that you have that you're kind of dreaming into or thinking about that feel like kind of a next phase for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for this, my next immediate goal is 5 million a year.
Okay.
5 million a year. Very possible, and I'm going to need it to do that because the vision, part of it is, what I want out of it. That's, there's some, personal ambition, and I want a certain lifestyle, certain freedom for my family and my loved ones. Sorry about that. So I have ambition. So that's part of it, but really not even the major part. Honestly, the things that I want to do, I believe that through the fampreneur movement, like, we're going to save marriages.
Yeah.
Through the fampreneur movement, we're going to help inner city kids. Through the fampreneur movement, we're going to find people like broken Alex at 15, 16 years old, product of a divorced home, teen father. Like, that's who I was. And entrepreneurship created this whole new life for me that I don't know if I would have found a different way.
Yeah.
And so what if I meet inner city kids that don't feel like they have these opportunities, feel stuck? And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm going to do it. Let's do it. So I'm going to need this to, first goal is $5 million. Why? Because I want a youth center, a youth entrepreneur center. I want to teach financial literacy. So there's a business side of things where, we have programs. We're going to directly help our clients. But the impact of that is going to save families, save kids, save parents, and bring the image in my mind is the moment fampreneur was birthed into me was very long ago. And I remember it was at a bookstore. I was with my son. My son must have been 4. I actually came across the picture not too long ago, a couple of days ago. He was about 4 years old, sitting on my lap. I was reading to him. And that wasn't really something that we would do very often, is go to just Barnes and Nobles middle of the day just to hang out there, because I was always busy. In my mind, I'm grinding 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., giving my family I never had except for me. And that's the realization that I had that moment as I'm reading to my son. You're giving your family everything you never had except for you. And fampreneur was birthed at that moment. I'm like, no, never again. Fampreneur, if I do my job right, I'm going to equip people to be great at business without sacrificing their family life, because I believe you can have both. And what happens for the children is I'm going to return parents back to their kids that are like, Mom, Dad, are you done for the day? Do you have any more calls? I want to play. I just want to hang out. I just want to spend time with you. I want to be present with you, but you're cheating on me as your kids or as your spouse with this business you have. Well, then why don't we build the business around your life instead of your life around your business, and you can have both. And so for me, I needed to do 5 million, then I needed to do 10, and then I needed to do 50. And then there's curriculum that we could do free and in other countries. And so, family retreats, like, that's the vision here. And so I don't have the option to settle for my own limiting beliefs, because the need out there is calling me for something greater. And I've been gifted with this. I've been burdened in a great way, in the greatest of ways, because I'm hungry to serve in this capacity.
Ooh, I feel lit up just hearing you talk about it. Your passion for it is so palpable, and I absolutely love that vision. So, last question here. And I will preface it by saying, typically when we have conversations around money and financial goals, and so we say, okay, $5 million a year, that's roughly $400,000 cash that needs to be collected every month. Typically the conversation turns into math, right? And there's nothing wrong with math. I love math, but that's a very masculine approach to building the business, right? Which is, how many leads do I need to have? How many need to turn into clients? What I want to create space for is the divine feminine energy around money. So with that in mind, I want to ask you, how are you creating space for money to flow into your bank account and into Fampreneur through magic and miracles and through the divine feminine energy.
Yeah. If I were to tell you how the 100,000 that I just did in 6 days, how that happened, it was not math whatsoever. It was literally, I just want to be out there and I want to help some people. I want to serve people. I want to bring out the best in people. And I know, and I have faith and I believe, and this is the math that I play by.
Mm-hmm.
The math that I play by for me, again, going back to my faith, is what's God's economy? Because I don't want to play in other people's economy. Yeah. And what I believe is that his economy is a multiplication effect, not an addition effect.
Yes.
So if I'm out there pouring into people, if I'm out there sowing seeds, I may not know that this seed produces like a one-to-one exchange. Mm-hmm. But here's what I know. My role is to sow seeds, pour in. My harvest comes sometimes where I did not plant. And so literally in three Facebook posts, hey, here's what I'm up to. Guess what? I had sown seeds. So people are like, hey, can we talk? I'd love to get your support. There was no ad involved. There's none of that involved. Yeah. It was simply just being present and owning me, who I am right now, this identity that I finally allowed myself to accept, that isn't based on anybody else's expectations of me, but really who I am. And who I am is creating these magical moments that, wow, 100, I didn't even know it. Like if I would have done 20 in my first week, fine. If I would have done 10, yeah. But it wasn't that. It was just like, no, here's how you show up. Here is what you want to attract. And so be what's attracting this opportunity. And okay, great. Well, who I am is I'm a people builder. So as long as I build people, encourage people, pour into people, there's no choice but my numbers to happen.
Yeah.
I can get into ads and I love that. So I can geek out on marketing, but really my biggest marketing approach is simply being a people builder. That's it.
Yeah.
And to me, that seemed to work the last 7 days, but I have a lifetime of moments where things like that is actually what produced greater rewards than anything that I actively try to get.
Yes. Yes. I love that. It's forgetting about the how it's all going to happen and just taking inspired action, right? You're leading with your heart. You're leading in the place that you feel called. You're living out loud. So you're sharing what you're doing without attachment to the outcome.
Yeah.
But full trust, faith, and surrender.
Yes.
That the outcome will naturally follow. And it's not your responsibility. That's the responsibility of God, spirit, universe, who you're co-creating with.
That's exactly right.
To determine when that harvest comes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not being attached to how it's given either.
Yes.
And that's the other flaw, is like, oh, I want it to be this way. And they're like, to me, I've tried that before. I've prayed for things in the past. I've made declarations that I'll have this thing. And oftentimes when I do this, when I want it in my little sweet package of my limited thinking, oftentimes I would have settled for what I wanted because there was something greater available to me. Mm-hmm. And I have, so many times that's what happened is I want something in a specific way. And if I were to have held on to my specific way, I would have lost out on a greater thing that was available. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm at a place where I don't care how it shows up. I'm going to just be in the flow.
That's right. That's right. Releasing that control because you're actually fully supported and it can come in ways more fun and more abundant than you could ever imagine.
Oh my gosh, so much. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Alex, this has been such a joy. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your heart first and foremost, but also so many of your experiences. Thank you for talking about money with honesty and transparency. I know that that's going to help our listeners to examine their own money stories and heal some of their own limiting beliefs. So I just so appreciate you. And to everyone listening, again, you can follow Alex at Alex Navas Pro. You can connect with him on Facebook or his website, alexnavas.com.
Thank you so much. What an honor. It went by quickly. We could talk about this stuff for days. So thank you for inviting me here and allowing me the opportunity to speak to your amazing audience.
Yes. All right. Thanks, Alex.
You got it.
Thank you so much for listening to today's show. Changing the way we think, feel, and talk about money will change the world. I truly believe that. It starts with you tuning in, and it spreads when you share this show on Instagram and Facebook and tag me at mmakesmoney. And you know what moves the needle the most? Taking just a minute to leave a 5-star review on iTunes. This show isn't free to produce, so let's multiply those dollars invested to help this show reach a bigger audience each week. Thank you so much for your help. I really appreciate it. And lastly, if you want more connection, more M Makes Money style riffs, and a safe place on the internet to talk about money, jump into my free Facebook group, The Money Club. It's linked in the show notes. Until next time, I'm wishing you health, happiness, and boatloads of money.